You'll get your list. All right. Sorry about the delay. Okay, perfect. So we're just coming out of our in-camera session, and we are moving on to our action items. F1 is where we'll start. Welcome to any guests who we have here today, and also to Frank. Thanks for being here. F1 is our ed plan for the 2022-2025 school years. Daryl Sequin, our superintendent, will review the 2022-2025 education plan for the Board of Trustees approval. So the recommendation will be that the Board of Trustees approve the 2022-2025 education plan for the Livingstone Range School Division. And is there someone who'd like to, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so Trustee Yegas will make that motion, and then we will have Mr. Sequin speak to it.
All right, thank you very much. As Nikki's pulling up the presentation, I'm going to try to do something a little bit different. Rather than flip through each of the 32 pages or whatever it is of the education plan, I thought I would put together a little bit of a slideshow with a summary, as all of you have had a chance to review, of course, the education plan. But just on the second page of the slide there, I think it's really important that we start here because these are the foundational statements that guide us in our work in education and Livingstone Range School Division. So the vision, mission, and core values are those foundational statements that we created with stakeholder engagement about 3 years ago now, I think. And how we get to achieve the different strategies that are in the education plan, we've listed them under leadership, culture, and academics. And so I'll take you through that now. All right, so the first area, of course, is the leadership strategies and measures summary. And the stakeholder engagements that we've conducted over the past few years, since we created the vision, mission, and core values, you'll see them, those different stakeholder engagements are reflected in this education plan because the information that we've received on those stakeholder engagements are really important to understanding what it is besides academics that are really important to our stakeholders. And so what can we do to achieve those outcomes and assure our stakeholders that education in Livingstone Range is on the right path. And so you'll see them incorporated. In Livingstone Range School Division, we strongly believe that everyone has leadership abilities and everyone can contribute to the improvement of their school and the school division. And you can see just a snapshot there under the strategies of the various leadership opportunities that are available to our students and staff within our jurisdiction. We've got the Livingstone leaders, and I think you would agree with me, every time that they come and present to the board or we have an opportunity to see them in action like we did at the open house, it just brings joy and pride to all of us. They're a good group of student leaders across the division that get together on a regular basis to build their leadership capacity and then go back and contribute to their school improvement. We also have run for the last couple of years the Inspiring Leadership Program. Due to COVID and the pandemic, we started out with, I think it was around 20 participants in year one. And I think because of various factors there, we had to stretch it over 2 years, and 12 of the participants finished that course. Many of them went on to serve in leadership, like formal leadership positions in school administration around our school division. And others have taken that opportunity for professional growth to contribute in other ways in their schools. This year, we just completed last Thursday evening our second session of our Inspiring Leaders, and 9 participants completed that course. So over the last couple of years, we've had a little over 20 participants in that program, and it's been very well received. Historically, we've had numerous lead teachers, so representatives from around our schools, all of our schools, with literacy and numeracy. They meet often with Chad throughout the year to build their own capacity and understanding in those areas, and then create some action plans to help keep the improvement of literacy and numeracy at the forefront of our minds in Livingstone Range. This fall, we will be adding other curriculum type leaders as well with the implementation of the new curriculum that will be coming. We've got lots of distributed leadership happening, whether it's district or division leader and me coaches. The inter-school collaboration days are all teacher or staff led, not just teachers. Staff contribute ideas and thoughts to the professional development committee and lead those sessions in all of our schools on those collaboration days. And we've got others there. There's Leader in Me Lighthouse teams that are happening in several of our schools and anticipated to be more in the fall. We've got success coaches out there in some of our schools. Of course, the student leadership groups, not only the Livingstone leaders, which is mainly geared towards junior and senior high, but at the elementary level too. There are different leadership opportunities at the school level as well as the classroom. Some of the ways that we will measure our strategies are on the results. We've got a variety there, the Measurable Results Assessment, or the MRA as we shorten it to. The Alberta Education Assurance Measures are there. And then of course the Staff Pulse Check Survey, which we implemented and started to get an understanding from our staff, how they feel, their perception in various areas. And that was just administered this spring, and we plan to do that annually. So that will be different ways that we measure and those strategies under the leadership area. If we move on now to culture, culture encompasses a couple of slides. Even in the summary, it's hard to contain that just to a full few bullet kind of items. And so you'll notice that this first slide is really focused mainly on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit success. We've had a working committee, a staff working committee, that has been in place for a few years now. And as our chair mentioned, introducing this topic, this is a 3-year education plan. Some school divisions have 4-year education plans. Even though we annually tweak and update the document, it is meant to last over the course of 3 or 4 years. And so you will see some, the majority of the strategies are continuation, right, over time. We can't expect to affect the change, the full extent of the changes that we want in 1 year or 10 months. And so they span several years. And we've had this working committee in place for a number of years now, and it's been very successful in helping our staff feel more confident in their ability to meet the expectations that are outlined in Teaching Quality Standard number 5 and the Leadership Quality Standard number 5 as well, around First Nations, Métis, and Inuit perspectives, treaty, history, and legacy of residential schools. We've also used even more extensively in the past couple of years elders in schools, and that's been a valuable resource for our staff, but also for students as well. And so the elders, you've heard different reports from us and my senior admin over the course of the last few years, where elders are not only used in the schools, but other types of camp experience or other settings as well. Something interesting that we are going to be pursuing in this, and as a new addition, a new strategy, is around the Rupert's Land Partnership. And so Richard and I had an opportunity to meet with Rupert's Land Institute recently, and they're interested in enhancing the professional development opportunities that are available to us in Livingstone Range School Division, but also other school divisions around the province. And we were really intrigued with that conversation. As you know, in Livingstone Range, bordering both Kainai and Pekani, we have many First Nations students and Blackfoot students, and we've focused a lot of our efforts over the past few years on the First Nations piece of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. And so this partnership with the Rupert's Land Institute will allow us to delve more deeply into a greater understanding for our staff of the Métis foundational knowledge, which is also included in the TQS and LQS number 5. The last piece on there, the Indigenous land-based camp, I will maybe wait a little bit. I know Richard's report, monthly board report, has a little bit more information, so I'll keep you in suspense, and I'll just say our first effort at that was a very good success, and we're looking forward to the future with that for sure. The measures in these areas, again, come from the Alberta Education Assurance Measure that's administered annually, and really around the professional development that staff feel is available to them and help build their capacity. And then, of course, we would like to measure over time the number of students participating in the Indigenous land-based education camp. If we go on to the next page, we can continue with more culture focus. But this slide really reflects our efforts around inclusive practices, student engagement, and the mental health initiatives underway in Livingstone Range School Division. So we've worked with Jigsaw Learning around a collaborative response so that students aren't falling through the cracks, right? That we try to meet the needs of students in the best way possible with the resources that we have, even extending that into partnerships in the community. And so that work will continue. We learned from some of the stakeholder engagements that it was important for citizenship, for our students to be good citizens. And so part of the strategy there would be to have all of our schools participate in community service opportunities. Around the student engagement pieces, we've got a lot happening in Livingstone Range School Division. For a smaller school division, we like to try to offer our students many of the opportunities that would exist if they were to attend school in a larger school division. And so our staff have gone above and beyond to provide extra engagement opportunities, like the Experiential Learning Week that happens at Matthew Halton a couple of times a year. We've got the Flight Academy. It's a small group right now up in Claresholm, but we hope that that will continue to grow with time. The firefighting program that our administration up in Granham are offering to students across the school division who can join and be part of that. And it's exciting to see what's happening there. We've got hockey academies in JT Foster and Matthew Halton right now. We're also going to have one hockey program starting up at FP Walsh this fall as well. The ski academy, of course, is developed over the years and is a really popular option for students in the Lundbrook area to participate in. And then we've got a sports academy that would encompass many things happening at Walsh this fall. As you know, we've hired 2 place-based learning positions, and the idea there is to help build capacity in all of our schools across the jurisdiction of their staff to be able to offer place-based learning experiences and to get the kids outside of the school for those opportunities to learn from their community. And all of our communities have could be wonderful extensions of the curriculum. And our 2 place-based staff will help work with the staff in every school in our community to help build their capacity so that those things can be offered to students in every school in our school division. On the bottom there, you'll notice another slight increase in family school liaison support. So these are our counseling services that we have in schools. We've traditionally, in Livingstone Range School Division, had a higher level of support in this area than many school divisions our size. We've found that there are gaps in services in some of our communities, and we've done what we can to allocate and use our resources to meet student needs in these areas. And so for this next education plan, we've taken a look at the resources we have and have recommended, of course, bumping up the FSL time in schools a little bit more than we even have now. We know that due to the pandemic, that the mental health needs are higher than they've ever been. And so we want to do what we can to help support students. And again, you can see a list of measures there, using again the MRA, Alberta Education Assurance measures, and then some local measures that we can implement as well. All right, a couple more slides for you. Next area we'd like to focus on, of course, in our plan is the academic strategies. We're really trying to work to have our students take more ownership and empower them to be more involved in their own learning. And so down at the bottom of those strategies, you'll see students setting and achieving goals. This is something that we've had in the plan for at least a year, maybe two, but we'd really like to see our students involved more in setting and achieving their own goals. And so we'll work at that as a priority this year. We've got a number of other things that we're looking at as far as academic strategies. We had really good success in the initial Rock the Diploma participation. Our students, this was a partnership with Wolf Creek School Division with the enhanced learning model, and our students participating in Rock the Diploma. We would offer that opportunity to our grade 12s or grade 11s that are writing diploma exams to be a free experience. They would get bused here if needed to Fort Macleod. We would have teachers for those diploma level courses who would do a crash course on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday and help prepare students for the diploma. And we had a great participation, thanks in a large part to our Associate Superintendent Chad Kuzik, who helped to promote that and to get students here. The partnership involved the representative from Wolf Creek coming and sharing with the board the results. And we saw a real correlation between the students who took Rock the Diploma and their diploma exam results being increased. And so that only happened for one semester, I think it was, before the pandemic. And of course, with the way diploma exams were over the last couple of years, it hasn't been as much of a focus, and we're starting to implement that again in this spring, I think, with a couple of courses, and certainly in next year as well. So we're excited about the possibilities for growth there. We'll continue with our career practitioners. They've learned to adapt and do many things virtually as well. And so they're reaching all areas of our school division. We've got a plan for some strategies with furthering the work of our success coaches, in particular in Matthew Halton and at FP Walsh, to really be that guide and work with students to have more high school completion. And so we're excited about working with them in that capacity. The early learning programs that our director, Lisa Furukawa, has spoken to you in the past are up and running. We've had really good intake in those areas and getting those young learners off to a great start. So the strategy would be to continue with that. We are implementing some common assessments. We've got a number of them. Some came about because of the learning loss that occurred or the learning gap that occurred with the pandemic on where students are and where they normally would be at this time. And so we've got some assessments coming in there. We're also going to be implementing the STAR reading assessment. So we'll have data for the school board to look at in terms of how our students are doing across our schools in grade 2. You know, how is the reading, or grade 5, or whatever grade we want to. So that's grades 1 through 9, I believe, the STAR reading assessment that will be in place. And we are piloting a STAR math as well up in AB Daily for this next year. And so we'll get a little bit of a better understanding how that is working. Many of our school divisions currently use the STAR reading. I think about 5 of them do, but we will have that across the board now. So we'll have some divisional data that we can talk about, and our literacy leads will be able to use that data as well to help create action plans and support out in their schools. And then, of course, Mr. Kuzik will work with our lead teachers around the new curriculum to try and make sure that that implementation is as smooth as possible. And you can see the corresponding measures on the other side there as well. Lastly, this piece of our education plan focuses on the stakeholder engagements. It's been wonderful to have Mrs. Bond work with our school division. She's phenomenal in this area. She always presents an engagement plan to the trustees, and trustees have input into being able to tweak that. And then we proceed through the year to run numerous stakeholder engagements and get that feedback and continually work to implement strategies based on the results that we get. So I know that the board is really committed to assurance and trying to understand what it is that our stakeholders desire in terms of education and how can we best meet their needs. That really goes to our vision of every student every day. Let's see what else we've got there. Of course, the board always allocates the resources to support those priority areas, and will continue to foster, strong working relationships with our parents and school councils in particular. And then the other piece of the education plan is our capital plan priorities. The board recently approved these priorities. The Nanton solution, or the Nanton community, followed next in line by the Livingstone School, or that community out there with Livingstone School, and of course the Pincher Creek area. So there's our top three. Our access in our education plan references the financial reporting and our budgets and that sort of thing. That can be found there with the link. So that is a summary, and certainly answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Seguin. It is an interesting and difficult time in education with a new curriculum and all the effects from the pandemic, and we love seeing this presentation and that those focuses are still there of every student every day and our vision, mission, and values. Is there any questions from the trustees regarding some of the points in the presentation? Go ahead, Trustee Hodges.
Sorry. Thank you for the summary of this. It was much easier to look at the summary and then go look at the big report. I'm just wondering, when we set so we have our goals for the 2025, like the percentage increases. So were those based off of last year's, or do you do it post-pandemic? Because so much changed in the pandemic, it was really hard to measure anything. So I'm just wondering where you started for the first set, and then I know we're going to 2025, which hopefully nothing happens in this next 3 years that will change any of that. But I just wondered where the starting point started from.
Yes, that's a really good question. I had to go back a few years to get a baseline. So pre-pandemic, right? Because we didn't have diploma exam results for some of that time period or other measures. And so, I think it was 2019 even that some of the baseline data was from. And then so from there, trying to set as best we could a target. Now, the disclaimer or the qualifier is in there. Lots has changed. And so is what are students at the level that they were in 2019 or not, right? And so that's the unknown. And so we did the best we could with the information that we had. You'll notice too, I think, where there were strategies or measures, where there were measures that were like below 80% on some of the measurable results data that we've got, we believe that these strategies here will be able to see a greater gain than if you're starting out at a baseline of 80 or 90%. And so you'll notice that as the percent gets higher, the predicted increase will certainly be less, right? Because it's hard to go from 90% to 92 even, or 98 to 100, right? And so that's kind of the measure. We did the best we can with the information that we have, but this will be tweaked yearly. So, any diploma results or other data that comes in from the Alberta Education Assurance measure, we would update and tweak that next year to present to the board too. Hope that helps.
Yes, I think we'll really see over the next 2 years whether those projections are too high or not, just from coming out of the pandemic and where our students are. So I appreciate being able to go back and have the flexibility to adapt this and in setting our goals and making sure that our kids are still moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. We'll go to Trustee Toon.
Thank you, as always, for excellent report. Question is, with the pandemic and everything that's happened recently and the lack of data, I know that divisionally we've been doing other things to measure outside of those things that didn't traditionally occur. Has there been any discussion with the government on picking up some of those things provincially to have more in depth? I know that this format fit things traditionally in the past, but we've seen uh, the landscape change in education and talk about closing the gap and making sure that we are proactive with what's happening instead of reactive where we're testing at the end. And I know we're mentioning that to measure progress and checking in more often on things. Is there any talk with the government on changing what their requirements are so we're fitting more a current reality as opposed to something that might be a little outdated with what's gone on the last few years?
Yeah, that's a complex question. I mean, there's always conversations. I wouldn't say there's any formal conversations that have been initiated that I know of, but I know that through our Alberta Education Field Services Liaison, I've talked about, like, because every year I have a meeting scheduled with them to go through our education plan and also our annual education results report. And so in there, I've talked about some of the local measures that we're using and have put, you know, a suggestion in, I guess, that, perhaps this is something that the ministry would, that Ministry of Education would want to look at, because I think we've got some very valuable local measures through the engagements that we've been doing that are providing us with that local context and that local perspective that says, what's important to the stakeholders in our area. And so I think the assurance framework is such that there are certain government mandated kind of assessments that are engagements that are being done, like the Alberta Education Assessments measure, right? And then there's flexibility now in the insurance framework. I guess there always has been, but there's greater flexibility now, I would say, around using some local measures to, like you say, because the Alberta Education Assurance measure is really a lagging measure. The year's done, and the data is what it is, and you can certainly make some plans for next year. But some of these engagements that we've got in place, I think, allow us to be a lot more nimble and flexible in changing directions if we needed to as we move forward. So I don't know if that really answers it, Trustee Toon, but certainly there's probably further work to be had in that area. I think some of these engagements are newer for us, and I would like to see, over the next couple of years, the data that we get from them. And then maybe that's something that we want to entertain as a school division, is trying to advocate for other changes to the ministry's measures.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that answers it really well. I'd like to say that I think that would be a good discussion for us to have going forward as governors, to help with that advocacy work, to help fill in those gaps, to help get those changes made at the provincial level, to make sure that we're, like you say, being as nimble as possible. And just again, say kudos for an amazing report and plan. I think that the ability of our administration to help our kids flourish with what's happened the last few years and going forward at the same time, I think we've done a phenomenal job of making sure we're not shooting for just the baseline. We're trying to strive for that status of excellence and making sure that we're being as responsive as possible and making sure we're meeting our kids where they're at and helping all of our kids achieve higher. So thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Trustee Toon. We'll go to Trustee Gimber.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the detailed 32-page report. I loved reading it. It was fabulous. In there is a note about the expansion of the virtual school offerings to include second languages by 2025. Can you just elaborate a little bit more for me what that looks like, please?
Yes, and if you're okay with it, I've asked Mr. Kuzik to jump in a little bit. He's been working on this particular area with Tara Tanner, our division principal, and especially involved in the virtual school. So maybe I'll just let Chad answer that for a minute.
At this time, we're going to exactly that, working with Tara Tanner to be able to offer a virtual 10, 20, 30 course eventually in French. So that's our plan for second language at this point.
And I think I would add, I think we've maybe firmed up. I don't, maybe I shouldn't say the school yet. I think that Tara has been working with one school administrator and a teacher to be able to offer that French 10, 20, 30 through the virtual school. I believe it's certainly this next year. It might be this fall. I'm not sure which semester. But, you know, if the interest is there, then that's certainly something that we want to expand. And I would love for our school division to be able to offer other languages as well, right? So that, like, if you're a student in Lethbridge, in Calgary, Edmonton, some of the bigger centers, you would have options there for a second language. By using the efficiencies of size through our virtual school, that's the way that we feel that we can broaden that access to a second language, because there might be only 1 or 2 students in each of our high schools, and that's not enough to create a class, right? But if we have a couple of students in each of our high schools, we could have one jurisdictional course being offered to meet the needs of several of our students. So that's kind of our approach going forward. It's certainly that's been something been on my mind over the last number of years, and so I'm excited to see that we've got a little bit more of a solid plan in place for it to begin and hopefully grow even more in the future.
A follow-up question to that. So again, I appreciate the section in the culture with regards to the FNMI component. Is there any what consideration is there for maybe Blackfoot as a second language virtually, or anything else along those lines?
Yes, we've had limited up and down success with offering Blackfoot, particularly at Matthew Halton and at FP Walsh. Some years there's enough interest to be able to offer a language course in Blackfoot, and then other years there's enough interest but no instructor. And so that's the difficulty that we have. For, I would say, in the last 5 years, I think 3 of those years we have offered Blackfoot at FP Walsh, and at times through those 5 years at Matthew Halton too, but it was really dependent on the instructor, the certified teacher that we had in place. So that's always been a bit of a struggle, having that consistency there. But where the high schools survey the students and try to get course requests, if they have sufficient numbers, they try to find a way to be able to offer that course.
Thank you. Trustee Hodges?
Just to kind of piggyback on what Trustee Toon said about advocacy towards the government and maybe potentially changing their survey results, because it would be interesting to see now with the new curriculum coming in, if they are going to be changing how they are serving students and meeting the measurable needs. So I appreciate that we have our local context because we are able to see where our students are now, whereas the Alberta Ed's not as up to date as we are. So I guess just like Trustee Toon said, monitoring and requesting and doing advocacy just to make sure that we are all on the same page. So it just would be interesting to see if that's going to change with the new curriculum.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Is there any other trustees who have any questions or comments around the 3-year education plan? No? Okay, I just wanted to say I really appreciated seeing in there that increased focus on FSLs. It's, you know, we have these students with us in our schools, and that's a big impact, but their home life has a huge impact, and they come to school and they leave to these situations at home that can be great or not so great, and making that connection between school and family and having that joint approach is something that's been important to us when we focus on every student every day. And so increasing those relationships and those family-student liaisons, really, it can be a huge part of success for our students, because they need to be successful in their life and feel safe enough that they can then focus on school. So I think that's just a huge piece, and I appreciated seeing that student focus. So it's going to be an interesting and amazing 3 years in our school division, and this plan is, I'm sure, going to result in some excellent growth in our division. So thank you so much for presenting that plan. And so if there's no other questions or comments, we have a motion on the floor that the Board of Trustees approve the 2020 to 2025 education plan for the Livingston Range School Division. All in favor? Perfect, that is approved. Okay, so we are now going to go on to F2, grand opening of the Peaks campus. We are excited to celebrate the grand opening of the Peaks campus located in the Crow's Nest Pass on September 28th of 2022. And the recommendation is that the board direct advocacy to send out invites to the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Education, Town of Crow's Nest Pass Council, MLA Roger Reed, MP John Barlow, and Alberta Southwest Committee to the grand opening of Peaks campus on September 28th, 2022. And this is being moved by Trustee Hodges. So I will go ahead and let her speak to that.
Thank you. We are super excited to share with our constituents and our students and everybody about this new campus, our Peaks campus. And so we just figured, I just thought it'd be great to make sure that we have invites out to everyone who needs to be there to celebrate with us. So if anybody else has anything else they'd like to comment on, I'm just super excited to have this join.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Long?
Trustee Hodges, would you accept a friendly amendment to add to that the Crow's Nest Pass Chamber of Commerce?
Sorry, I thought that the CNP council, that's what that was.
Crow's Nest Pass Town Council, that would be.
Okay, so that's what it should be, the town council. That's what it was meant to be, yeah.
No, but would you add the Crow's Nest Pass Chamber of Commerce?
Oh, Chamber of Commerce? Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yep. It doesn't change the intent, it just adds to the list.
Thank you.
Thank you. It will also be advertised in the paper, right? Okay, so that's considered a friendly amendment. That will be added in. Is there any other comments, questions? No? Trustee Hodges, did you want to close? No? Okay. Okay, perfect. So the motion will now read that the board direct advocacy to send out invites to the Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Education, Town of Crow's Nest Pass Council, MLA Roger Reed, MP John Barlow, Alberta Southwest, and the Crow's Nest Pass Chamber of Commerce to the grand opening of Peaks campus on September 28th, 2022. Perfect. You can all see the wording there now. Okay. All those in favor? Perfect. That is passed. Perfect. Thank you guys so much. So we're now going to move on to our discussion items. G1 is the Art Gala. Trustee Hodges and the Awards and Recognition Committee Chair will present to the Board of Trustees a video honoring the award winners for the 15th Annual 2020-2021 Emerging Artists Award. Do you want to speak to that, Trustee Hodges?
Just to show that we are celebrating our students that we had for our art gala. Typically in the past, before the pandemic, we were able to host an art gala in the building here, but we still wanted to be able to recognize our students that have submitted the art. So we put together a video, and I just wanted to share it with everybody. This video also is being sent out to all the schools, and so they will celebrate it in whichever way they choose to at their individual schools, but just know that all the kids up there are throughout the division. So just wanted to play the video.
Hello and welcome to the 2021-2022 Livingstone Range School Division Art Gala. I'm Lacey Poitras, Board Chair for the School Board Trustees, and I'm here to congratulate all of you on being selected as this year's Art Gala winners. Art is a place where we learn to trust our ideas, explore our emotions, and give life to the impossible. It's unique and personal, and we're so honored that all of you chose to share your pieces with us. Over the next year, your art will transform our hallways into a museum, and our days will be brighter and more inspired because of you. Congratulations to all of you on this wonderful accomplishment. Your pieces are beautiful, and we can't wait to see what your future holds. On behalf of the school board and the entire school division, congratulations, and keep exploring those ideas.
That was wonderful. I always love when we get to see it here, but having the kids come up and shake hands and stuff is so great. But I love just being able to celebrate this. And am I right that this is at all the schools and can be played, throughout the rest of the year on their screens and stuff?
Yeah, however the school chooses to celebrate it is up to each individual schools, and just also too that the students have been recognized at the school and have received $25? $25 for their pieces of their artwork. I know in the past, sometimes some kids have put their artwork up for sale. I don't know if any of them are. There's 2 pieces up for sale. Oh, okay, so there was 12 pieces up for sale, 2 have been sold, so if anybody was interested in looking at to see which ones were for sale, I think you could just reach out to the school division, to Nikki, and she could put you in, let you know which ones are for sale and if there was anything, and the price of them, so. Thank you. If there's any questions, I don't.
Okay, thank you guys so much. It's always an exciting time. We'll move on to G2, the ATA Induction and Retirement Evening. Trustee Poitras, that's me. We'll discuss with the Board of Trustees the ATA Induction and Retirement Evening being held on Friday, June 17th, 2022 at the Pincher Creek Legion. I just wanted to make everyone aware of this at our ATA meeting. It was mentioned the date, so we could have a placeholder, and there are invitations coming out to all Board of Trustees. Maybe I'll turn it over to the chair, Trustee Yegus of the ATA, if you had anything you wanted to add or discuss.
No, I haven't got any more information than that. Thank you.
So those invitations will be coming out. Hopefully, Savvy said hopefully by the end of this week. So does anyone have any questions around that piece? Okay, perfect. So we'll move on to perfect timing, G3, Nanton School Value Scoping Session. I see Mr. Perry's arriving here. Under the approval of the Livingstone Range School Division Capital Plan, the Nanton solution is our #1 priority. As a preparatory step in the process, Alberta Education has encouraged the division to go through the value scoping session. A value scoping aims to identify solutions that provide the highest value for money while maximizing the utilization and functionality of the school's infrastructure to optimize the learning environment and educational program delivery for Alberta students. Value scoping is a structured problem-solving process based on the value management discipline using functional analysis to develop a range of alternatives and achieve consensus around a preferred solution that provides the optimum balance that maximizes functionality and minimizes cost value. In order to add this information to the division's capital plan and ensure the consideration of this project by Alberta Education, a scoping session has been booked for June of 2022. Mr. Perry, our Associate Superintendent Business Services, will provide additional information around the planned value scoping at this time. So we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Perry.
Okay, thank you. I have to catch my breath from running down here. But yeah, I appreciate the lead-in. The lead-in gives a significant understanding of what the scope of the project is. I'll give a little bit more information with regards to what that process will look like for us. Like it says in there, it is Alberta Education does like boards to go through this process with their #1 priority on their capital plans, which Nanton has been ours for a little while. And so under their recommendation, we looked into this process. Alberta Education actually has a document that identifies the different steps of the process. They identify who would be part of the process or as far as facilitating the process. And so those are the types of things that they look for. There is a cost associated with this process, and Alberta Education does support the process with funding. It has to be submitted once submissions have been received, and they will give consideration to that and provide funding. Given that they recommended it to us, we anticipate funds coming for this process to cover the entire cost of it, other than potentially the logistical side of things. So just a little bit about the process we went through. So Alberta Education provided us with a list of consultants that provide these services that they're aware of. We reached out to all of the consultants, and in fact, I even went a step further and submitted to other boards in the province as to who they've used in the past for these consulting services as far as a value scoping session, because not everybody does it. Not everyone's familiar with it, and so we reached out to those who have completed this process in the past. And there was one additional consultant that I reached out to based on the information I received back from some of those boards that provided information. In the end, we received 2 submissions for our value scoping session for the Nanton schools. The lowest price bidder and the successful consultant is the FWBA team in Lethbridge, so Ferrari Westwood Babbitt Architects. And along with them, part of their team is EHAN Engineering, which is out of Edmonton. So we're quite familiar with Ferrari Westwood Babbitt Architects, but we haven't been familiar with EHAN Engineering in the past, but they've joined together to provide these sessions. EHAN has, during the COVID time period, has done many sessions on a virtual basis. And so the combination of a in-person / virtual was the more efficient, effective, and cost-effective and way to go here. And it met our timelines with regards to trying to go through the process prior to the end of this school year, so that we can provide Alberta Education with additional information in relation to our capital submission on the Nanton schools, and so that it can be considered for future project announcements. So the process will begin June 13th. It's an in-person session at JT Foster. It'll continue with a virtual session on June 15th and end on June 24th with a virtual session as well. And like I said, EHAN has been offering these types of sessions over the last two and a half years. They've found that this format, even though we're at a stage now where we can go back to meeting in person and things of that nature, they found that this process was more effective, in their opinion, than previous 2-day sessions where everybody gets together and hammers out a proposal and submission. So some of the benefits that they found from this was that it was obviously more effective and efficient time-wise. It's also cheaper due to less travel and logistics, and over a 12-day period, it allows comments and feedback to be given outside of the meeting days. And so you can not have to be put on the spot and answer right away, but you can provide information after the hours of the meeting on a software. It allows consultants to go away and have time to draft the concepts discussed, and it also gives the time consultant more time to appropriately and accurately cost out the proposals. And so the submission in the end will have a cost attached to it that can be provided to Alberta Education as well, and it's based on the market at the time. Participants include many individuals within the Livingstone Range School Division, so Ward 3 trustees, senior management, area leads over facilities, learning support, administrators of the school, teachers, students, school council chairs from both schools, town representation in the town of Nanton, Alberta Education representatives, and Alberta Infrastructure, and any other special areas that we feel that we need to be part of that process. And yeah, that's kind of the process itself is broken into different stages. And this is the requirement of the Alberta Education for any consultants. They need to be a certified facilitator, and so EHAND is certified to do these types of facilitations. There needs to be various aspects, so a pre-workshop stage, a workshop stage, and then a post-workshop stage. So things like information phase, function analysis phase, creativity, evaluation, development, and presentation are all components of this process. And EHAN will take us through that, and the other consultants will be part of that as well. I think that's, for the most part, is the information that I have. Again, recognize that it was a short notice with regards to when the dates, but those were the only dates available for the consultant groups at the time in order to meet our timelines. And so we went forward with that, hoping that we can get representation from all the different groups that we mentioned. So I'll leave it at that, and if there's any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Do we have any questions from the trustees around the Newton School Values Scoping session? So I had a question. After some of those meetings take place and they can go on the software and give feedback or questions after, that's only open to those involved. It's not like open to the public or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We've had other various opportunities where we've received feedback from community on different areas of need. One of the discussions will continue to be curriculum, programs, some of the things that have been mentioned in the past. We know that there's a desire to maintain certain space for certain reasons with regards to community supported programs, and look at other ways of how we can partner as well. So yeah, there's still conversation about those.
Thank you so much. Trustee Toon, did you?
Thank you. Yeah, excited for this opportunity. I think this just shows how dedicated our administration is about trying to get this priority realized for the community. It's not an easy task to do this process, but excited that we're going down this path to do everything we can to make this happen. Just with the timeline of the process, when would the results, do you think, be available for the public?
So I anticipate the ultimate report will be early July is when the report will come out. And obviously we would put that on our website and make that available. But the timeline itself goes to June 24th, and then there's the finalized report writing that would need to occur. So I anticipate early July is when this document would be available.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Is there any other questions or comments about the process or the results at this time? Okay, perfect. Then we appreciate your presentation, Mr. Perry, and we look forward to hearing more of what comes out of those 3 sessions. So thank you. We're going to move to G4, which was the superintendent's report. Trustee Yagos asked to have that pulled, so if I could just turn it to her.
Thank you. The reason I had it pulled is because I noticed in his report he talked about the Rupert Land Institute and the Métis, and I was very interested and happy that something is being done more with the Métis in this area, because I do know there's a fair amount of Métis that live around in the Crow's Nest Pass and Pincher Creek and Fort McLeod. So I don't know. I noticed that you had said something about this in the presentation you did, but I don't know if you could add any more or.
Sure, I'd love to. And then to give Richard Feller, our associate superintendent, an opportunity. He attended that meeting with me, and so two heads are better than one. I may miss some of it, but basically, we had a meeting maybe 6 weeks or so ago, a couple months ago, maybe it was, with some representatives from the Rupert's Land Institute, and we were very impressed with the types of services that they could offer that would help us be able to enhance the professional development for our staff in this area. If we look at the Rupert's Land Institute website under the K-12 Education tab, it says, the Rupert's Land Institute develops comprehensive foundational knowledge resources, engaging lesson plans, meaningful professional development opportunities, and authentic classroom learning tools that speak accurately and meaningfully to topics in Métis education. And that's the summary. When we heard that and then we listened to them describe the different types of programs and services, we had visions of how they could work with our First Nations, Métis, and Inuit staff working group to help build capacity, perhaps even with our admin council to build capacity there as well. And they have other education goals, and our students could benefit. As you mentioned, Trustee Yagos, we have a number of students who have self-identified as Métis in our school division. Every year at graduation ceremonies, we see the sashes that the kids are wearing representing that Métis heritage. And so some of the other services that we would be more aware of than we were in the past would be to expand the offerings of awards, bursaries, and scholarships available to Métis students. And then one of their other aims around education, the Rupert's Land Institute, is to engage in collaborative partnerships that support and improve educational outcomes for Métis across early childhood, kindergarten to grade 12, post-secondary and adult level education. So yeah, we were just very intrigued with the conversation, and afterwards when Richard and I spoke, we're like, this is something we need to do to make sure that we've got more emphasis on the Métis portion of this and building our staff capacity and awareness around this area. So Richard, do you have anything else to add? May have missed?
Just really quickly, that it was fantastic timing, because as we were meeting with the Institute, our place-based supervisor, Joel Gamache, has been signed up to do some work with them. And so as we're talking about how do we infuse all of our Indigenous perspectives into the work that we do, he was already taking initiative and working with them. So we already had a really good connection there. So I think that's the one piece that, that I wanted to highlight.
Thank you. That was interesting.
Thank you so much. Was there anything else that anyone needed to discuss around that? Questions or concerns? No? Okay, so then we will move to our last item here, G5, where we had Associate Superintendent Richard Feller's report pulled by Trustee Gimber. Did you want to speak to that?
Thank you. Trustee Long and myself had the honor of attending the opening ceremonies for the first Indigenous land camp. I'm just wondering if you'd be willing to elaborate on the partnership that's there.
I would be so excited to do so, but as part of my commitment, I'm hoping you remember when we come together, I'm going to give you a little bit of a test. Oki Sanadapi. The response is Sukapi, good. Itsukapi, really good. Matsukapi, all is not well. So we'll try it one more time. Oki Sanadapi. Awesome. Awesome, thank you. No, we're super excited to be able to have this program in our school jurisdiction. We've been working on it now for the past 3 years. It's been part of our ed plan for the last few years. And we were fortunate enough to partner with a group called Actua. They provide funding for organizations that are doing work to bring science, technology, engineering, and math into communities to support Indigenous learners. Extending on that, it's not just about Indigenous learners, it's about all learners as well. And so a few years ago, we were able to send a couple of employees to Ottawa to be trained by the actual Actua partners. They work in collaboration with the University of Lethbridge and various other universities throughout Canada. But the University of Lethbridge is the organization that's closest to us, and so we work with them as well. During that time, we were able to work with them to determine what it will look like for our students moving forward in an Indigenous land-based camp, and all of the different various opportunities they would have, from building miniature birch bark canoes to setting up teepees to learning about various cultural components for specifically Blackfoot in this area. And we were able to partner with Matthew Halton School through their experiential learning week. We had 20 students who joined us, and as Trustee Gimber had mentioned, Trustee Long and Trustee Gimber were at the opening ceremonies. It was a fantastic opportunity to be there, to listen to our elders and knowledge keepers impart some of those important learnings and teachings that our students will be able to be better for. Interestingly enough, we had a few extra guests that we hadn't anticipated, and many of the chickadees in the area decided to join us at the circle. And so that was an extra bonus for us. With that said, Joel Gamache and Jason Clifton, Tara Tanner, Chad Kuzik have been working tirelessly to get this opportunity underway. And it resulted in an amazing experience for those 20 students. I think it was last week, Jason Clifton, our place-based supervisor, was meeting with ACTUA to do a debrief and a report on what happened. And the exciting news is that ACTUA loved what happened. They believe that, you know, we're in the right place to do the right work and with the right people at the University of Lethbridge. And they committed to future funding for us for $30,000 to $40,000 a year if we keep things the way they are right now, where we are doing a 5-day camp. But they're hoping that we would like to extend that, taking it slow and increasing opportunities for other schools in our jurisdiction, other students in our jurisdiction, and would be willing to increase that. If we're staying within the $30,000 to $40,000 range, they will commit to working with us, and we don't have to apply any longer. We will just need to set up camp, set up the time, and work with the University of Lethbridge to bring back to our students science, technology, engineering, and math from an Indigenous perspective. So we're very, very excited about that. Yes, Trustee Hodges.
So exciting. Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm just wondering, so this benefited 20 children, and so if they've committed to funding us ongoing, is there a plan to hopefully change out the 20 students every year, or how many times a year can you do it, or how did the kids go about being able to do it? It's amazing, and I'd love to see all kids be able to do it if they choose.
Yeah, the experiential learning week really was just sort of that structure that allowed us to get students out for a week at a time. We have had lots of conversation prior to how we're going to make this work and sustain over time. And so we do have some ideas in how we can have more students access this opportunity. In fact, we're trying to think about it from an Indigenous perspective and doing it four sessions for each season. How that would roll out, how that would look, we're not quite sure yet, but we're committed to taking a look at how we can structure that for all of our schools.
Thank you, Trustee Hodges. Trustee Toon? And I meant Long, sorry. Go ahead, Trustee Long.
Yeah, Mr. Feller, it was I could tell, a wonderful week. I went on Friday as well for the closing, and the difference I noticed in the students, and I noticed it because of my past experiences, over their initial excitement and everything on Monday, and uncertainty as well, to Friday, seeing all the bonding that they had made with each other, and how their spirits, as we had talked about on Monday, their spirits were not as hyper, but certainly healthier. So I would really hope we get all of our secondary students to get the opportunity to go out there and be with the elders.
Thank you, and I must bring forward Joe Eagletail Feather's name. who has worked with us for the last few years in this role, and his ability to connect with students and connect us to other knowledge keepers and other elders has made us a much stronger division. So obviously a lot of thanks go to Joe, his sister Josie, and his mom.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? So we've been talking about the land camp for a number of years, and unfortunately I was away and couldn't be there, but it's so wonderful when we see you know, these pieces of our education plan and all the planning come to fruition, and then to have it be such a wonderful success, and to not only have it be a success for us, but to have another outside group recognize that and immediately want to help sponsor and fund it and give these dollars so that others can have that experience. It's definitely a testament to the work that's gone into it. So we appreciate that so much. I'll let Mr. Seguin add to that.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to mention, I mean, this is part of our commitment to truth and reconciliation as well. And this is a really good example of how we demonstrate and show our value, I guess, to this work. What I understand is that very few of the students who were actually, well, not very few, but a good portion of students that attended the Indigenous land-based camp are not self-identified First Nations, Métis, and Inuit students. So that's really neat that they are, the students are willing to learn more and to spend the week out there. We just need to find a way, like many of you have talked about, to have this opportunity available to more students. And so we've got some thoughts and ideas, but we'll certainly go back and have more collaboration with our high school principals to see how we can make that happen.
Thank you. So just, I think I speak for all the trustees when we say thank you to all the work that's gone into this, but I think we also want to thank ACTUA and everyone who worked on getting that funding together. So thank you to them and you guys. Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to our 3 key messages from today's meeting. Is there any trustees who have anything that they'd like to add just right off the bat? Trustee Long?
Yeah, I think we should share the land-based experience with all the parent councils. And hopefully it'll happen to all of our students, secondary.
Thank you so much. So our land-based camp and highlight the partnership with ACTUA. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Trustee Stankiewicz?
I'd like to share the NEN value scoping sessions with the community.
Oh, go ahead. Trustee Long? I mean, Trustee Hodges.
Thank you. Our Alberta Education Plan, I would love to highlight that, please.
Perfect. So we have the land-based camp and the partnership with ACTUA, our value scoping, and the 3-year plan. Trustee Yegus, would you like to add?
I do know that I'd like to also share that the opening of the peaks to the campus so that people are aware it's coming up. They can mark their calendars.
Sorry about that. Thank you very much. So highlight the date. Save the date for peaks on September 28th. Perfect. Thank you. Trustee Kimber. That's 4.
I know, but the art gala video was like mesmerizing. So how can you not highlight that too?
Because we only have room for 3 and this is 5. Just kidding. So if everyone's comfortable, we will add the art gala presentation and let people know where they can find it online. Okay.
We can just highlight it because it is in the schools already too, so.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm not gonna look at anyone else for anymore. So we have 5 key messages. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. So with that, if there's nothing else, Trustee Toon?
Yeah, just some housekeeping here. I have a couple notice of motions. There's another one that will be submitted that I didn't get prepared. That was talked about in the committee of the whole around PD. That one will be coming forward too, but I have 2 coming forward right now. The first one.
Trustee Toon, sorry, just before you start, will you send these in?
Absolutely.
In
I will
writing?
send them
So, okay.
to Nikki, and background will be added as follows. These are just the motions. The first one is co-sponsored with Trustee Stenglitz, and it is be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the trustee personal PD fund as follows. 150% year 1, 125% year 2, 100% year 3, and 25% year 4, with carryover allowed from 1 year to a maximum of $2,000 and no carryover beyond year 4. So that's the first one, and I'll submit that so everybody can see that. And the second one is co-sponsored with Trustee Gimber, and it is be it resolved that the Board of Trustees place into policy that trustees are ineligible to host international students.
Thank you for both of those notice of motion. We'll look forward to discussing those at our June meeting. Is there anything else from any other trustees at this time? Trustee Yagos?
I was just going to make a mention. This is a sort of, I think, a celebration. At my last school council meeting at Livingstone, they were. I sent the key messages to the secretary who sent them out to people, and they were very, very impressed with Mr. Kuzak's presentation that was written up by Nikki. So I thought I'd share that because some of our parents do read them, and some of our parents are happy with what is said. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and good work, Mr. Kuzak and Nikki, for always making us look so great. Okay, with that, then at Trustee Toon?
I would make a motion to go in camera.
I was so close.
So close.
So close. Okay, we have a motion at 2:24 to go in camera. All in favor? Perfect, thank you.